Hey, it's Mike Hambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting VIP interview where I interview some of the most successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in the industry to help you learn and grow. Today, I'm joined by Dave Lindahl, one of the nation's leading experts in buying and selling multifamily properties. He currently owns over 7,000 units and has a large coaching and training business where he teaches others how to become successful investors. Before we get started here with Dave, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, Mike?
Hey, glad you're here. So, thanks for joining today.
My pleasure.
So, I know there's a lot of folks that know who you are. There's probably, hopefully we find some today that aren't too familiar with you yet. I can learn more about you, but tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got started. I know you have an exciting and a very interesting story, so tell us a little bit more about you.
All right. Well, I got started actually from landscaping into real estate. Actually, my whole story goes like this. I joined a rock and roll band when I was 16 years old, a band called Flesh Picnic. And the title means just like it sounds, Flesh Picnic. And I did that band for about 8 years. We really tried hard to make it in rock and roll. I was the lead vocals in that band. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I got a lot of crazy stories.
I bet.
Yeah, but at 24, I realized it wasn't going to happen, unfortunately. And I was always told that if you want to be successful in life, you either have to own it or you have to sell it, one or the other. So this is April. I'm from Boston. That's when the grass starts growing around here. And I started knocking on people's doors that I saw that had high grass and asked them if I could mow their lawns. And the first year I had 41 accounts, and that worked out pretty good. But then the winter came, and winter in Boston lasts about 6 months.
Right.
And so I had to find something else to do. So I did odd jobs. I did snow plowing. I did anything I could to get some money to come in. And I made it through the first winter, did landscaping again for the second season, absolutely loved it, being outside, get a lot of exercise, and I liked the business. But then the second winter came, and the same thing happened, and a friend of mine realized I was struggling. He worked for a local bank. They were foreclosing on properties. Now, this is like 19 years ago. Right. Just like the same type of environment that we're in right now, we're just coming out of recession, banks were foreclosing on a lot of properties. And he asked me if I wanted to do the work on one of the properties so I could have some income coming into my one-bedroom apartment. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I had no idea how to do the work on the properties. I had no idea how to bid this job. But I did know that I was probably going to get it because my friend worked for the bank and he was going to help me out. So he did help me out. And I get help from my cousin on how to bid the job. So he brought me over there on how to bid it. I won the bid with the help of my friends at the bank. And then I went to Home Depot and learned how to, do fixes. You ever go to those seminars at Home Depot, nights and weekends?
Yeah, I'm familiar with them, yeah.
Yeah, so I learned a lot there. But what I really learned is I wasn't going to get good at doing any of that stuff. I was never really good with my hands.
Yeah.
So I got good at picking up the phone and calling contractors and subcontractors. And then, after I did the first one, the bank liked the work. They were able to resell it quick. I did a second one. I did a third one. And then I started realizing that there were homeowners and investors looking at these deals. Homeowners wanted to know if the furniture was going to fit. Investors wanted to know what else was wrong with the property. Right. So when they were asking me all kinds of questions, I started asking them all kinds of questions. I started realizing that I was probably going to make $3,000 or $4,000 fixing this property, and these investors were going to make anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 flipping this property. Yeah. So I started doing what the people listening to this interview were doing. I started getting as much information as I could from successful people, and it took me about 9 months actually to do my first deal because I was afraid. Yeah. But I bought my first property 9 months later. And it wasn't a single family; it was a multifamily property. Okay. And I hear a lot of people start out with single families, and people actually ask me different times, why don't you start with singles before you went to multis? Yeah. But fortunately for me, I started an interview with a guy by the name of Harry Helmsley out of New York City. Are you familiar with him?
That name sounds familiar. Yeah, I'm not sure
He started with nothing, started
Yeah.
buying and selling apartment buildings, and ended up owning the Empire State Building.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. So it was during that interview, the interviewer said, Harry, what was it about apartment buildings that got you going? And Harry said, I always liked the idea that a group of people would pool their money together and give it to me so I could pay off the mortgage on my property. In essence, they're buying the buildings for me.
Right.
He said, I like the idea that they give me money every month so I could pay for the maintenance guys to take care of the properties, and I could pay property management to take care of the tenants so I wouldn't have to. That was a key phrase right there, having somebody else take care of those tenants, because I didn't want to be a landlord.
Right.
And then the third thing he said was, and I always liked the idea that that same group of people would give me money every month so I would have extra money at the end of the month after I paid all those people. Spendable income, money I could reinvest, put into a savings account, or go out and buy some more properties where they'll just go out and have some fun. And that's when a light bulb went off, and that's when I was hooked. I thought, man.
So you heard that before you bought your first property, or was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I bought my first
So
property.
that's why you kind of thought, hey, multifamily is where it's at.
Yeah, I thought if there's a group of people out there that want to pay me every month to buy properties for me, I'm going to let them.
Yeah.
And I've been letting them do that for the last 18, 19 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. And I still flip properties as well. See, when I first started, I had no money. I was broke, so I learned about, I first started with credit cards. I went to a seminar that said, get as many credit cards as you can, get them with the non-recurring fees. And I did that, and that worked for my first two properties. And then I started hard money. I think most people start with hard money with real estate investing.
A lot of folks, yeah.
And then I started learning, learning about no money down real estate with flipping single families. And I started flipping the single families to get chunks of money to support my multifamily habit. And
Right.
to use those for down payments for the multifamily and get this cash flow coming in on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how it all gets started. And my first 3 years, after I went through that first 9 months of FAIR, I bought my first property. Within 3 months later, I had 3 more properties. 6 months later, I had 9. In that first year, I had 11. And then fast forward 3 years from there, and I had 42 of them.
So what year was that? That was.
Oh man, that was back in 1998.
Okay.
Yeah, I bought my first property December 27th, 1998, 25 Spring Street and 25 Newton Street in Brockton, Massachusetts.
Okay. Okay. And then from there, I know it just becomes just a game of growth at that point. I mean, I know a lot of folks that have tons of properties. I mean, how do you set, I talk a lot to folks that I mentor about the importance of setting goals.
Yeah.
Of course, nobody ever says, I want to own 7,000 doors.
No.
I mean, that's too small. That's too big of a bite initially. But what was your vision then for how to kind of take it to, where you are today? Or did you think that would ever happen?
My first goal was 100 units. I thought with 100 units, I'd be somebody. I'd be making good money. My struggles.
You could start the band again.
Yeah. We still get together every once in a while. It's quite a time. It's good stuff. But the first goal was 100 units. The second goal was 1,000 units. And then when I realized I could get to 1,000 units, the third goal was 10,000 units.
Okay.
So I think you're right about goal setting. I first started goal setting with Earl Nightingale. Are you familiar with him?
No, I don't think so.
He got 2 really good tracks. He's dead now, but he wrote this thing called Lead the Field, which a tape set that I listen to. It's all about goal setting and all about how you talk to yourself inside of your head.
Yeah.
I've been doing all those crazy things that people do in rock and roll bands, putting all kinds of pills in my system, alcohol, drugs.
Yeah.
And I had a real negative attitude, after 8 years of that. And I learned how to talk to myself the right way, and believe in myself and realize that I could do anything I want to as long as I went out and get educated to go out and do it.
Right.
So Earl helped me do that. So that was the tape series that he had. He also had this 45-minute thing called The Strangest Secret, which was really good as well. And that helped me just
that sounds
inside myself. Yep. So I started goal setting. And the funny thing is when I listened to that, I wrote down my 1 month goal, 6 month goals, 1 year goal, 5 year, 10 year, 15 year, and 20 year goals. It took me like 3 hours to do it all, right? Within 5 years, I had reached the 20-year goals. And I still have a copy of those today. I have them dated, and I have them framed up.
Yeah. That's funny. We moved offices a few months ago, and we've been in the same office for 6 years. And I found our initial goals when we first started our business, and we had far exceeded those too. So it's kind of a good feeling when at least you're on track.
The deal is when you set goals, your mind, even if you put them in a drawer and forget about them, your mind doesn't, and subconsciously it's going for them. So
absolutely, yeah. So talk a little bit about when you got to the stage to where you said, I need to teach other people how to do this. I mean, I'm sure there's a combination of one is a business opportunity, but two is just the desire to really help people and share your knowledge.
All right, before I do that, can I take you into the transition from how I went from local to national in my real estate?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So for the first 3 years, I bought only 3 to 6 unit properties because I was afraid to buy anything bigger. I had created a lot of equity. Within 1 year's time, I created $10,000 a month positive income coming into my one-bedroom apartment. That made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah.
Within 2 to 3 years, I was a multi-millionaire, a lot of that being in equity in my properties because I had hit a market at the right time. I had hit Brockton, Boston, Massachusetts, as it was just starting to come up on an upcycle.
Yeah.
And as I continued to invest, I started learning about market cycles and learning that all this equity that I'd made in my properties was going to go away if I didn't do something with it, if I didn't either cash out or move it to another market. So I started looking at other markets around the U.S. that were just starting to go up in the same market cycle. I started studying market cycles, and I started learning that job growth is really the promoter of most new market cycles. And I started moving my equity from Brockton to Montgomery, Alabama. I followed a car plant there. I moved into Texarkana, Texas, where a BMW plant moved. Jacksonville, Mississippi. And I started going to these what I call emerging markets. And I realized that actually owning bigger properties was a lot easier than owning smaller properties. You had more cash flow. You had more acquisition fees, which I can get into later. But there's a whole other business in this business in acquisition fees. And I learned I could grow even faster, and that's when I set my goals. I went from 104 units from 2.5 years. It took me 3 years to get to 104 units. 2 years later, I was at 2,500 units with my emerging market strategy and in bigger properties.
Yeah.
So now I'm in 18 different markets around the U.S. and we control over 7,000 units.
Wow.
So that's how we went from small to national. And I mean, anybody can do it. It's just a matter of creating a team in a particular market and being in the right market at the right time. Where right now in the U.S., there are so many emerging markets because most of the markets are coming out of the recession right now. It's just a really, really good time to be investing.
Yeah. And I think there's also a lot of, in terms of following job growth, there's a lot of folks, a lot of large companies that are moving out of California and other places to go into some of these emerging markets for tax reasons or otherwise. So
one of the things we followed probably back in 2006 was we followed Countrywide, who were a big lender back at the time. Now they're out of business, but we followed them moving 1,500 jobs from Southern California over into Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
And we started buying all around that area. And because of that job movement, and they have what's called a multiplier effect with that. With every new job that's created, that there's a service job created as well, anywhere between 2 to 5 of them. And so we just started buying in those areas. And typically these market cycles last. These up cycles last between 5 and 7 years. So our MO is to get into a cycle somewhere near the bottom, get out somewhere near the top, but not close to the top, far enough away from the top so there's no risk of it actually topping out on you.
Right.
And then moving that money into another market and doing it again and doing it again. Okay. And when you do that, you just create an explosive amount of equity in properties, huge amount of cash flow, and it really just takes one emerging market to make. I say one emerging market will make you rich, 2 emerging markets will make you wealthy, 3 emerging markets are going to retire your next generation, and people are going to point at you as the guy that created all this legacy wealth.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun too.
Awesome. So a lot of these properties that you were buying, were they all you? Were these partnerships? Were they syndications? Were they a little bit of everything? Or
well, it started with me doing 1031 exchanges for my smaller 3 to 6 unit properties. So because I had gotten in so low, I created a lot of equity. I had $100,000, $150,000, sometimes $300,000 in equity in these properties. So I was flipping those from 3 to 6 unit properties into 40 to 70 unit properties.
Okay.
And then when I realized that actually that the 100 to 150 unit is really the place you want to be, with the economies of scale favor the multifamily properties. I started going into those, and when I set my goals from 1,000 to 10,000, I realized I needed to use other people's money in order to do that. So I started learning more about private money and angel investors and where people are that would want to be in my deals, basically business owners. And I started going to those organizations, and instead of asking for money, which I did at the beginning and I hated to do, I started offering opportunities. I started offering an opportunity to get into a real estate deal to get a much better return than they were going to get in their IRA, CDs, or savings accounts. You know, and when I changed my mindset to offering an opportunity instead of asking for money, all of a sudden that was much more attractive to the people there. And here's one other thing that I did that really changed things. I let people know that I didn't take everybody in my deals. I only took a certain people. Yeah. And people, you know, after I say that, sometimes people will say, especially when I do it at my events, people say, well, you know, what are your criteria? And I say, there's 2 criteria. Actually, there's 3 criteria. Number 1, you got to have money, right? If you don't have money, you can't get in the deal.
Yeah.
2, you have to be an accredited investor, and that's a whole other teaching process. And number 3, you can't be a pain in the butt.
Right.
Because the worst thing, do you have investors in your deals?
Some, yep.
Yeah, so you get a pain in the butt investor in your deal, then the deal, it's not a great real estate.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, it's not fun if you have a pain in the butt. And always the person that puts in the lowest amount of money is always the biggest pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So we try to keep our minimums high, and if somebody I think is going to be a pain in the butt. Now my deals usually people are in for 3 to 5 years, because we're in a multifamily property, a large one, we're in an emerging market, so we're going to let that market increase, and we're going to watch that equity increase, and then we're going to get out of the deal. So when I bring in an investor into the deal, I'm married to that investor for 3 to 5 years. So I'm really selective on who I'm going to bring in.
Yeah, you have to be, yeah.
Yeah. And when you're like that, more people are attracted to you because people want what they can't have, right?
Right. There's some scarcity there, yeah.
It's a good thing.
Plus, it's very true. You don't want to encumber yourself with something that makes it not fun or just becomes a burden for you.
Oh,
so,
man. Yeah. I mean, some people can really ruin it. I mean, I had this deal where there were 14 investors in the deal. It was a 280-unit property over in Texas, where you're from, and the deal was going great. We projected an 8% cash-on-cash return. We were giving quarterly like 10.2, 10.3, and we'd have these investors come on the calls, and we're looking at the profit and loss statement, and they'd be like, well, why are the office supplies $20 more than this month than they were last month? Like, are you kidding me? You're getting a great return from this property and you're nitpicking every freaking thing. The calls lasted for like an hour to an hour and a half, or a normal call with an investor will last 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah. It's just I was talking to my partner and it was like, yeah, man, that call sucks. We don't want to do that call anymore. So we sold the property.
Yeah.
Oh, we're selling the property. The investor's like, what do you mean you're selling the property? It's like, well, the market's changing and we're selling the property. One of the tricks about bringing investors into your deal is that you create it so that you have the managing LLC. So you have the final say. You don't do a tenant in common relationship. You call the shots. They're like, yeah, we're selling the property. And they're like, oh, well, what else do you have that we can invest in? And for everybody else in the deal, except for those other 2, we had something. But for those other 2, we had nothing. Nothing for you.
Yeah. So talk about how you kind of moved into teaching other people how to do this.
Yeah, well, that's I went into real estate brokerage, and I created a pretty big real estate brokerage company as well in a short period of time, and that was going pretty good. And then what happened was my real estate agents became very territorial. And if you're listening to this and you're in a real estate brokerage company, you know what I'm talking about. People became territorial. They became jealous. I was taking school bus drivers, disabled oil technicians, and that were making $25,000, $30,000, nurses, $40,000 a year, teaching them how to list and sell real estate, not invest, but just list and sell. And they were making $100,000 to $150,000 just 2 years later. And all of a sudden, the pace became it became adult daycare. I hated it. And then my mom always taught me that when you get, you give back. And my investing in emerging markets was going really well. My real estate was going really well. My big why is being able to support my family. I come from a very blue collar family, and I come from a very big family. I've got 18 brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews. My mom and my dad. My mother was a fish cutter in the fish piers of Boston for 18 years. My dad worked 2 jobs to support us. So now, to me, I take the entire family on vacation every year for 2 weeks to Martha's Vineyard, because just to create the same bond that we had when we were growing up. I also grew up with 3 other immediate families, my mother's sisters and 12 cousins, and we were enough for 2 sports teams. It was great. Yeah. So my big why is my family, and I forgot what your question was.
We were just talking about kind of transitioning into teaching other people how to do it, kind of the coaching business.
So my mom was always inbred to us. I was brought up a Baptist Protestant. My mom was always inbred to us that when you're given something, you give back. So when you get, you give. So it was a combination of really being burnt out of that real estate brokerage company and doing so well in real estate. And after 10 years of investing in real estate, I thought, you know what? I could give back. I could start teaching. I could create a teaching business. I've seen other people do it. I was going to the other events myself and getting as much education as I could. And when you go to events, I was a seminar junkie, and you see other seminar junkies as well. And some of those people were doing really well, and they were teaching themselves. And I thought, man, I could probably do that. Not only that, number 1, and number 2, I could get back on stage again in front of people. And that would be a good thing. Yeah. So that's what brought me into the education business. And the other thing that brought me into the education business was the fact that some of those events that I went to weren't that great, and they were more really they were really focused on selling you something else instead of teaching you what you needed to go out there. Right. I thought to myself, if I create an education business, I'm gonna give my students the tools that they need to go out and get. And that's what we do. We change lives basically.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, that's great. That's
We've
great.
got, here I've got 2 different offices. I got one down where you are in Dallas on McKinney Ave. It's got 171 associates. We moved it from Boston down there when we owned so much in the Southwest about 6 years ago, and that's our acquisitions company. Then we've got about 28 people here in our education company up here in Boston. And we've got our core culture, our 10 core values on the wall. Number 1 core value is that we are not successful until our students are successful. We work at that every day. And we've got our wall. People line their walls with, with famous people, that they're shaking hands with. I line my walls with my successful students and copies of checks that they've sent and the properties that they've sent and them all happy with their families, Those are the pictures that I love. And that's what you see when you walk in here. 12,000 square feet. We've been in this building now for 8 years. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. So talk a little bit about your thoughts now. I mean, after you've got obviously a ton of experience, early on you kind of heard that multifamily is where it's at. Clearly you still believe that. But for a lot of folks that are kind of out there, one of the challenges I think a lot of potentially new real estate investors have is they're paralyzed by the amount of opportunities that are available. There's a lot of ways to make money in real estate investing. Yeah. Even in single family, there's we couldn't even list all the exit strategies or ways you could make money there. Yeah. What kind of general advice do you give to folks of why they should consider multifamily over anything else?
Well, first of all, get involved in real estate, get involved at any level, and do what you're comfortable doing, and then move up from there. Because the first part is the entry. Get a deal, know that you can do a deal, and then start looking around and see what looks best for you. Multifamily for me made sense because I wanted long-term wealth. I wanted people buying buildings down for me. I wanted cash flow coming in. I never had cash flow coming in. I was always paying out bills, and I remember my credit cards were at a point so high that I was barely making the monthly payments, but I never thought I'd be able to pay them off. Yeah. And so I come from that mindset. So when somebody said, these people are not only going to pay you every month, pay for your property, pay for the maintenance, pay for that, they're going to give you extra money at the end of the month to go out and spend. I thought that's where it's at. And, they're building up your equity. They're giving you cash flow. I mean, that's where real wealth is in real estate. So, I mean, I don't want to downgrade single-family properties investing because it's a great way to make money. One of the problems with it is you create a job for yourself because in order to get another paycheck, you have to flip another property. Right. Which is okay because it's a very high-paying job. I still flip properties because I can. And I've created these systems where the leads come in and you sell them, and I've got other people out there doing the analysis and all that, and we collect checks, and that's what it is. Systemizing, collecting checks. I've just found that multifamily properties, you get checks on a consistent, regular basis. Sure. Most people are afraid of being a landlord or afraid of the tenants. And I always teach, don't deal with the tenants. Have a good quality management company manage the tenants, and you just asset manage the management company, and that's really the way you build your multifamily. Yeah, absolutely. We have a rental. We have my portfolio is not as large as yours, Dave, but mine are all single family houses, and there's no doubt about it. I have no intention to ever manage those. I have no interest in that. In fact, whenever some folks have probably heard me say this before, but it's fairly common for me to be in the general vicinity of where I have a rental property at. Yeah. And I go out of my way to not drive down that street because I just don't even want to know. I've got too many things already churning in here that I don't need anything else on my mind. So check this out. I did a video probably a year and a half ago, and I was showing how I got started on my properties and the properties that I still owned in Brockton, and then I went to a couple of my big ones. And one of the things is I was talking about property, some of the tenants would walk out, right? And one of the questions I would turn to them and say, "Hey, I got a question for you." And they say, "Yeah." I say, "Who am I?" And they look and they go, "I don't know. You from the news?" And I'm like, "Nope." And then somebody else says, "You building inspector? You from the city?" It was like nobody knew who I was, and that's the way it should be, right? Yeah, I agree. So for folks that are interested in learning how to get started with multifamily and learning more about some of the great products and tools you have available, what do you advise? They can go to a website called davefreebook.com, and I'll be happy to give out a free book. I've written some bestsellers. I wrote Multifamily Millions. I wrote Emerging Real Estate Markets. Yep. I wrote a book with Donald Trump called Commercial Real Estate Investing 101. He actually called me personally and asked me to write it with him. But my newest book is called Massive Passive Income. And you can get it free on davesfreebook.com or davefreebook.com right there. Dave Free Book. So, yeah, we'll add the link down below the video for that so folks can get to it. So any other last-minute tips you want to share with folks that are, we have listeners that are
single-family investors, multifamily investors, some that are interested in getting started and they haven't yet, some that are starting at a low level and they want to ramp it up? I mean, what kind of advice do you give?
Two pieces. Number one, make a commitment. Make a commitment every day to do something, no matter how small it is. And number two, take that action. Make the commitment to take action and then take action. If you do that, you'll be so far ahead of everybody else and you'll actually be going towards your goal, which is financial freedom. So action is what it's all about. You can have all the skill, you can have all the knowledge, you can take all the classes, go to all the courses, but if you don't take action, nothing happens.
That's absolutely right. Great advice.
I've got one more piece of advice. Can I share?
Yeah.
All right. Don't be afraid to fail. And this is what I've learned in life, that people are not successful because they're afraid to fail. So I've got this formula that I've used ever since I started investing myself, which was be bad, get good, master. So don't be afraid to be bad, because you're going to be bad at the very beginning when you're trying anything. So don't be afraid to be bad, but be bad, then get good, because you're going to continue to do it and you're going to learn from your mistakes, and then master it. And then you'll be successful in anything.
Awesome. Dave, hey, thanks so much for your advice and your vast information. Definitely appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Stay in touch, my friend.
All right.
Bye-bye. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.